Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, your significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, this show is for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create a life you love or love the life you create. Now, here's your host, Dr. April, and co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. Welcome, Coach K.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to see that we're here and you are here and in a safe place and doing well.
Yes.
What everyone's just gone through.
Yes. So for those who are out there listening, I'm the host of Bringing Intimacy Back, one of the hosts, and I live in Southwest Florida. And I wanted to do a show to talk about all the ramification and the things that are happening in Southwest Florida right now, and to be a resource for people to come and talk and share their experience. I've lived all over, but I've mostly lived my life in Florida. And so hurricanes are not anything that are really new to us, but this last hurricane has had a major impact on many people throughout the state. And so I wanted this spot today to be able to share our thoughts and prayers. If anyone who's out there listening, I just want to let you know that there are people out there that are really providing China resources, trying to help and to build the community back, because that's what life is about. It's about community.
Absolutely. And speaking of community, just saying hey to QB Kindles here on YouTube that's tuning in. And just for everyone to remember, because a lot of times, you know, when something like this happens, and like you said, it's not new to your area, but every single time it can be devastating every single time. It's difficult and it's hard. And even though I'm not in Florida, and there are many people who are not in Florida, we have family members, we have friends, we have just the anxieties of. So I appreciate this show this week.
Right. And some people may say, like, you know, what does this really have to do with intimacy? And why would I have, this show? But really, intimacy is about connection.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes. And connection with people, connection with a variety of things. And that connection, there are people who lost a lot of connection and just with family members, because for some people, they couldn't, they had no electricity. There's still people, thousands of us out there who don't have electricity. Many people don't have basic internet service. And also many people don't have their basic needs met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, you can lose connection with yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Many people can go through something like this and it just completely turns their world upside down. You know, you can lose loved ones, you can lose pets, you can lose so many things, including yourself in times like this.
Yes. And I've, struggled with that myself. And one of the ways that that helped me is my connection with my higher power. And I know many people they get mad at their higher power, which is understandable. I mean, I see him as a father, so he's an ultimate father. Mm-hmm. Of why would something like this happen? Why do, bad things happen to good people? Many people have that question. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about people's experiences. And I also have a group of other therapists that I work with to come on to let us have that discussion. And so I'm going to introduce them in a moment. I'm going to take a break, but when we come back, I'm going to introduce a few other therapists, and we're going to start to have a discussion about Hurricane Ian and its aftermath and its effect. We'll be back in a moment.
Life can be overwhelming sometimes. We think we are a burden to others. We think that it's better to hide it and suppress our hurt, but it's not. As Cave Coral Therapists, we will provide you with quality, confidential counseling services in a relaxing and peaceful environment. Talk to a professional today. Book an appointment on www.cavecoraltherapist.com or call 239-565-6921.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. I'd like to welcome two of my therapists that I currently work with, Peter Covert. Welcome, Peter.
Welcome.
I'm not sure if we can hear you, Peter.
Thank you for helping.
Yes, okay, thank you. And I also like to welcome Ria.
Hello.
Hi. Both of these are therapists that I work with dearly, and because of the hurricane and stuff, they both have been displaced, have had their struggles in the sense of their basic needs, and they want to share with their experience, but also we're going to talk about different resources and help. So, yes. Peter, would you like to share your experience?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. It's really something. I've been living in Florida for many years, since 1992, and I've seen hurricanes come and go, but I think this is the closest that I've ever been to the eye wall, coming ashore. I've been kind of struggling to put it into words. But for a while, I don't know that I can really. I left, and my wife and I went to a shelter in a high school in Northport, Florida, which is very close to Port Charlotte and the Punta Gorda area where I presently live. And I'm glad that we were there. There was officials there, about 800 other people there. And, safe. Can you hear me all right?
It's a little bit spotty, but it's still there.
I'm sorry. That's probably still the aftermath. It is working. It goes on and off throughout the day. What I wanted to say was we felt safe in the shelter, but it was the noise. I just remember the noise and what it sounded like from that big gymnasium with all those people. It was awful. We knew something terrible was going on, and the hits to the building, tree limbs or something. I don't remember what all it was, but it would get people's dogs barking, or you'd hear, a muffled scream or something. But that went on for, maybe 6 hours. And then we began to hear things, that roar outside subside. And there was no way to really look outside. And it's probably just as best as we didn't. But when things settled down around 5 a.m., we went out and we saw, quite a bit of destruction, trees, roof, things like that. But it was the flooding. It was still dark, and people were wanting to go check on their homes, and it was very difficult. It was very difficult to get home. It probably took 2.5, 3 hours. We had to start out in two different directions. I have a Toyota Tacoma truck that doesn't sit up particularly high, but maybe 24 inches at the axle, maybe a little bit down. Anyhow, the water was about 36 inches, about a yard high. There were times when we would go down a street and we'd have to turn around, and there was a woman, a nurse, I remember from a hospital, who in the dark, she was walking nearly waist high. And we pulled over and I said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "I can't find my home. I can't find my home." It was very strange. We offered to help her, but um, it was just too deep where she thought her home was. And we had to turn around and come back. And then we tried another street, and one of them we saw a police car that had gotten off the side of the road, and it was about half submerged, and the policeman standing there up to his hips and said, "Can we give you a ride to the station?" And he said, "No, they're coming for me." And when we turned back because it was too high, I mean, the water was in the inside the cab. But that was the most difficult part, probably the noise of the storm cell passing, and the aftermath was the water. The streets, whole streets, had washed out, and the emergency services there, the police, the city, they had put some roadblocks up, but there was the damage was pretty severe.
Okay.
But you know that today here, it's about a. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's okay.
but
That's okay.
that's my story.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up a little bit, but I did hear about how you were in the shelter, how you were the winds, and hearing that was just
Yeah,
very intense. And then even leaving the shelter, trying to go to your home, and the water
yeah.
rising, how scary that must have been.
Well,
And
it was.
trying to help others, because I know you have a desire to help others. Um, and how sometimes, yeah.
I think that's one. I think that's one of the beautiful things, April, about what I'm seeing post storm. You know, we don't have a lot of operable street lights, and even on the busier streets, people are stopping as if a four-way street, and there are people that are, you know, helping others, and I've never seen an army of electrical workers like we have now. I mean,
Right.
there's just an army of them. They're parked in huge parking lots and getting things taken care of. And that's the human side of it, how they're coming together so quickly. And you know,
Right.
there's empty lots with, you know, hundreds of great big uh,
Hmm.
trucks, you know, that are bringing food and water, staging. And it's
Yes.
good to see
Yeah.
that
So
people come.
yeah, it's a blessing to see all the help here in Southwest Florida, and I thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm going to hear from Ria now and her
You're
story.
welcome.
Yes.
Can
So
you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Hi. It just, as Peter was speaking, I was thinking of trauma and how people react to trauma. So my experience is similar in that we were, hours and hours of just waiting, not knowing whether the lights would go off. They would go off and come back on. But what goes through your mind? I was thinking like, well, I have air mattresses. We should get them ready. Do I have life preservers? Because and you look around and you say like, oh, I can get on top of the kitchen counter, but that might not be high enough because they're talking about surges higher than 4 or 5 feet. So I'm looking around and saying, well, if I get on top of the cabinet, we might be safe. And, you hear stories of people putting their family members in the attic. And you think, if you put them in the attic, how do you get out if the water comes up? So this is what goes through your mind. And it's traumatic. It really is. It's traumatic. As far as the pictures that you see and the photographs and videos, there's nothing like looking at it for real. So as I was walking the beach, and we could only walk the beach to get to where we were going after the storm to see whether our homes were, because we were in mandatory evacuate areas. You walk in, you're just looking and saying, you take a picture and look at the picture and say, this is nothing like the real thing. To see just all people's, everything's just all over, and it's just like a bicycle in water or somebody's cane, or you just look, or photographs, you'd come across pictures of family heirlooms just all over the place. It's very it's almost surreal. You go in your mind to a place where like you're safe, but are you really safe? Is this going to happen? And just to let you know that the few people that I've spoken to that have a story to tell are so grateful to just be able to share their story. And I've had people thank me and just say, you know what, just 10 minutes of let me share what happened, because it's always better to express your feelings, especially about what you've been through. So it's all about trauma and how to get over the trauma. And that's really expressing what happened and realizing that you're safe now. You're safe now. You're sharing a story. It wasn't pleasant by any means, but you do feel now like you're in a safe place and you can look back and say, I'm going to recover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm thankful that you're doing this, but I also know that right now you've lost.
Yeah. I lost all of when we got back to my place, the windows were blown out. The entire, from front to back, was glass, sand, water everywhere on every article of clothing, on every furniture, everything. But more than that, we can't find the cat. Our cat is gone, and it was, about 15 years old. His name was Shadow. There's probably over 400 cats that we've been just scrolling through. I don't think that he was a really cool cat. I don't think that they would have been able to catch him. I don't know. I mean, there's stories of cats being on top of fences and not being able to, nobody would be able to get to them. The amount of, I saw a dolphin when I was walking on the beach, a baby dolphin that had died. So in addition to, people walking around and saying, like, one woman came up and said, like, have you seen Pam? Have you seen Pam? And she didn't realize that I didn't even know who Pam was. She was just looking for a family member that was lost. Or you'd run into people and say, like, did you see my boat? Or my car, because they're flipped over, they're floating, and it is really traumatic. But what's important for me is it's about people and helping people, and not so much things. Things can be replaced. So when you think of the things that are missing, they're replaceable. But telling your story and having people understand and be compassionate is most important to me. And we're out here for you. The therapists are good, and even family members and friends that you can find support with, you should just go out there and tell your story.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Yes. And we're going to be back and ask some more questions. So, Bria, yes. I know I haven't even checked on you. I have a little bit, but yeah. So tell us about your stuff.
Well, I live upstairs. So as far as flooding goes, that wasn't something that I particularly had to deal with. But there was a lot of things that occurred after the hurricane. When it came to waiting in the lines at the gas stations and for different supplies that you have to get. The trauma is not just with the hurricane, but people's responses to trauma are sometimes inappropriate. I was at a gas station. A woman decided to shoot at the gas station. So it's just like, yeah, I was.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah. So back people up. I'm assuming there were long lines, or you tell me.
Yeah, it was a long line around the corner, and the woman, she was already up there. I don't know what happened because I wasn't directly in the midst of it, but I seen her get out the car. She shot and different things like that, and it was just little kids out there and just everything. So people's responses to trauma is not appropriate, but because of how you've been living or the environment that you grew up in, it impacts what you do. And in that moment, it wasn't the right thing to do, and that's what she chose to do. From my understanding, the authorities have her now, but it's just like we are already dealing with the aftermath of a hurricane, and then people's responses to it. On top of that, them shooting and different things like that in different communities is something that it needs to be acknowledged, and it needs to be talked about, and people need to know that it's another way of doing things. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do, so we can help you to process things the proper way, and you not having to feel like you got to fear for your life or feel like you got to do things out of an emotional response to somebody else that could have been de-escalated, minus weaponry being used. So, that was something that I had to deal with. Mind you, I have children too. So my children in the hurricane, like, that's another perspective. Your children, you have the parents that already deal with everything that's going on and trying to make sure they provide and they have for the kids. And then you have to see about your children too, with their emotional states, what they're thinking about. You have to sit down, you have to talk to them, you have to make sure you take the time out so that the responses to things like a natural disaster, they kind of know what to do as well. So, it's about preparation and also about recovery, not only for yourself, but for your children as well, with letting them know it's okay for you to feel scared sometimes. It's okay for you to feel sad sometimes, And then on top of that, I lost a loved one as well just yesterday.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Sorry
So
to
my
hear
uncle passed yesterday. Yeah. So it's just like people are losing people, they losing stuff, they losing material things. So it's like you have to look at life as a gift. And, hopefully through everything that everybody has seen and witnessed based off their own stories, you look at life as a gift. That's why it's called the present. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to just be appreciative of every day as it comes because it's not promised.
Exactly. And that sense of gratitude of just, hey, I made it through, and being a support to one another. I'm glad you mentioned children, because I was going to ask you, how do you talk to these young people who sometimes are not even used to not having electricity, not having internet? Yes. And even in this aftermath. Yes.
So I have different age brackets. So that's a good thing. I have a preteen, and then I have an 8-year-old, and I have a 2-year-old. So how you talk to your 2-year-old is going to be different from each level of going up. But the main thing is trying to let them know that something's happening is out of our control, and in life sometimes that's how it can be. But instead of you getting upset about something being out of your control, how about we look at what we can do in the moment?
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask them some things. What can we do if the lights go out, sweetheart? Or what should we do if the water starts to rise in the house? What's some things that you think we could do? Help them to get involved with ways to protect themselves and for them and practice as well. I think it's very important too. When things like this happen, preparation is key. You practice with your kids, different responses they can have for certain things. So then when it comes up, they're not so fearful to the point where they're frozen and just shocked and you screaming or yelling at them and they don't know what to do. It becomes chaos. So kind of like preparing them in a sense of that way can definitely help them. Even talking about the situation after the fact. How y'all feel? Are y'all okay? Acknowledging their feelings, because sometimes as adults we forget to check in with ourselves, which means that we also forget to check in with our kids. So we have to make sure that we not only check in with ourselves. If you have a significant other, or even if you by yourself, take the time out to be like, okay, am I okay? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Check in with your kids. Sweetheart, you okay? What's on your mind? How you feel about everything. And
Right.
and they'll be able to tell you. Your 2-year-old probably won't. They'll probably walk off, but at least you asked.
Yes. And the other population, Southwest Florida has a lot of, and is the elderly. And it's
Oh,
really
yes.
important. I mean, I know I have my elderly parents with me, and elderlies many times are so used to their stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My uncle, his home flooded. And I went over there. Me and my husband, we went and we took everything out the house for him because he had multiple surgeries like on his back and stuff. So we had to go in and help him and take everything out and mop everything up. And I mean, in an instance like this, one thing I know is that community matters, family matters, and becoming united rather than being divided is very important. You have to unite in situations, because if you're divided, you'll feel like you by yourself or you all alone. But as these other communities, like these different counties and these different cities have come in and been like, Florida matters too. We here for y'all, whatever y'all need. That's how we got to be about one another right here at home.
Right. Exactly. And so I just moved into a new community that's a little distance from Fort Myers, but that community has been, and it's a church I go to, Grace. They've been doing donations and all this kind of stuff, getting clothes, getting diapers, all this stuff. And we're shipping it and moving it to Cape Coral, Fort Myers. Like you said, it's about community. And that's what we need to be about, is connecting. And also I don't know about you, but when you're helping your uncle, and even though you have your own stuff going on, it improved my mental health a little bit. Yeah.
You said what?
It improved my mental health. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I'm
it
going through
does.
stuff and I'm helping
It
out
does.
me with someone else. Yes.
Because it's a service that you're giving. Like, giving your time to be a help, it definitely serves us well, and it shows you that you yet still have a purpose, regardless of what you yet can be beneficial to somebody else's life.
Mm-hmm.
you know Even though your life may not be going all the way right now, but guess what, I'm not unable to yet give, and just like others are still giving too. It's a lot of people that's out here volunteering and stuff, and they done lost a lot of things too, but that's how they able to deal with their mental health in the proper way, to process things the proper way, and look at the bright side. Sometimes it isn't all about saying that I'm going to look at the bright side. It's about actually doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, instead of just talking about it. Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And I think also because some people are so scared of connecting with people, they're fearful.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
only have this left.
Yeah.
I mean, what if that gets taken? But it's about community, being able to trust
Hmm.
in that aspect. Yes. Hmm. I know. Ria was talking about how out there because Ria used to have places near the beach, and how they lost everything. Yeah, yeah. When your basic needs are totally gone, how do you go about still making and having hope? Hmm.
Well, I have a really strong faith base as well. So for me, prayer is very important and meditation. But I always think, like, in the midst of it all, I was looking into self care and how to take care of myself. At one point, I just started painting. So, we always use that expression, if your cup isn't filled, you're not able to help others. So for me, I was thinking I have to get myself in a mental state where I'm, relaxed. So you find what makes your spirit soar. If you enjoy music, you're going to go to music, art, reading. A lot of people just would take a book instead of, through it all of those hours, having like a little flashlight and reading a book that takes you away. So you look for those things that de-escalate your feelings. If you're feeling, that trauma or reliving that trauma, finding the things that make you calm, and think of the things where you can use visualization or muscle relaxation. There are a lot of tools that you can use to settle yourself. So it's about soothing yourself, making sure that you're okay, and then of course reaching out to others, because it's in giving that you receive. So when you're helping others, you feel meaning and purpose in your own life. So there's a lot that you can do. There's people in need, and there's people that are looking to help people in need. So it's reciprocal. It's a beautiful thing, actually, how people come together in a time like this and are able to help each other through their journey.
Hmm.
Can I
Yeah.
add something to what Ria said real quick, pertaining to all of the things that she listed, which is amazing because she's absolutely right about everything. Something that I think is very simple that we tend to not, or we tend to forget to do in times when we're struggling, is breathing.
Ooh.
Yes.
Take a
Yes.
deep breath, honey. It will relax you. Science has proven it. You have to take a deep breath from the pit of your gut and then let it out, because it will bring you down. Your blood pressure, it will bring it down. So remember to breathe. Take that deep breath. If you shed some tears a little bit, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel those emotions. They're appropriate. It's
Mm.
okay. But when you feel that overwhelmed, and the tears start to come, that means you need to let it out. You got to breathe,
Yeah.
release. I'm sorry, y'all, but
No, no, no,
I just
what
wanted to say that.
what you're saying is right. It's right. And I was talking with someone recently, and they were saying a lot of the men are having a hard time with this hurricane because many think they have to provide.
Oh yes.
And
My
that's
And
husband,
protect.
my husband's from another country too. Like, you have people that's visiting from other countries, or just came here from another country to live, and to be having to deal with this right now. They just brought their children here. I mean, it's a lot of different scenarios going on here. But
Mhm.
one thing I know that we all can do is take a deep breath.
Right.
Just remember to breathe. Just remember to allow yourself to process, because if you don't, you will start to just react and you will just start to do things.
Yes, yes. And thank you, QB Kennels. He was saying about the nasal breathing. And the nasal breathing is either breathing in one nostril, holding it, and breathing out the other nostril, and then breathing in that. It really does. First thing, you have to concentrate, but it does help out. Yes. Another thing is, someone was telling me their story about how they were on the second floor or the first floor, and it was starting to flood. And the water was up here, and they had to swim, and they also had dogs, and they had individuals who cannot swim, and they had to put them on a raft. And all that was just a lot of stuff. And so they're having trouble sleeping. One other good technique is talk it out, write it out, tell your story. Because the more you speak it out or the more you write it out, it helps in that process. So that's another way of letting it out.
And you can also give yourself a hug. Some people, I know it may sound, a
Yes.
lot of things seem unfamiliar, right? And we'd be like, that's so stupid. I'm not going to do that. Just give yourself a hug, honey. So I'm not going to tell you nothing I haven't done myself. It works if you let it. Give
Open up
yourself a
intimacy
hug.
with
If you
yourself.
single and by yourself and living on your own and ain't nobody right there next to you, hug yourself. Love yourself. And be like, I am here. I am breathing. I am living. And I know that today may not be okay, but tomorrow is another day that I can face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The thing I love about Bria, she's always, even though she has so much stuff going on, she's always got that positive energy. Yes. Yes. And I love that part of hugging yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes a silver lining in all of this. There's something that we have to be thankful for. And every day we have to be thankful for life.
Yeah. And this might be a good reminder for just anyone who's listening to start the process now. Start the just self-love and healing now. Because just thinking about the woman you spoke about, her reaction, because honestly, a lot of us are one bad day away from just doing something dramatic. So if we can start the process when there's nothing happening, in those times where we need to pull from what I call our, trauma bank or our intimacy bank, we have made lots of deposits. So if that means you start with 5 minutes of let me practice this breathing as I drive into work. Mm-hmm. Let me communicate with my children just in general so that it's not so awkward. Let me just say hey to my neighbor. Just throw my hand up and say hey to my neighbor so that if I need them, it's not so awkward. Start the process now because it's never too late to begin where you want to be eventually.
Amen to that. And you're right. And I was just thinking about how I just moved here and some of my neighbors helped me put up my shutters and stuff. But many of us don't talk to our neighbors, don't talk to anybody. We don't trust anybody. And in an instance like what just happened, you need other people.
Yes. You need to know that you're not alone. Even though you know you're not alone, when irrationality kicks in, you truly feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this by myself because you're not comfortable saying, I need help, or how can I help you?
Or if you've been independent for a long time, it's very unfamiliar to be like, well, I need help in this situation, but understand me, it's okay. It don't matter how long you live on this earth. At some point, you're going to need somebody.
Yeah.
When you enter this world, you're going to need somebody. When you leave here, you're going to need somebody. So why not just take advantage of it and be open to allowing yourself to do those things? It's just, you got to be willing. You got to be open. And then even though it's unfamiliar or it's uncomfortable, the more it'll become comfortable to you. uncomfortability does bring on a change. So if you're uncomfortable in the moment with saying I need help, the more you start to say it, the more you start allowing yourself to express that, the more you'll start to feel comfortable in it. But you got to start.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because some people are like not wanting to use FEMA, which is a great organization for help, or all the other organizations out there, Red Cross, or like, you know, I'm so embarrassed I have to go to a food bank or whatever the case may be. But if you need help, you need help. And that's what this role is about, is helping others. And on there, it's also explaining Southwest Florida Relief Fund, because Southwest Florida here in Fort Myers and Cape Coral and Sanibel, and the people out in Sanibel. Can you imagine living on an island? And for some reason, some people didn't leave, and now the whole bridge is gone.
Yeah, and it's not about why didn't they? It's
Right.
about how can I assist? How can I support?
Exactly. That's where we got to be. It's like, yes, what can we do to help? Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly glad to see that all three of you are even upright and able to be here to speak about what has happened, as well as Peter, who had to step off. But I can appreciate that you would even take that time, because you're letting people know that it's okay to speak your story out, because sometimes the power of talk, it is amazing and it goes a long way. So encourage your children to give their experiences, even just to you, or to write it down. So I appreciate you all for sharing after going through so much, where you could just say, you know what, we're not going to do anything this week until we get things together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can say that I talk to heal. I don't just talk because it feels, because I just want to talk and heal myself. No, I talk to heal too. It's a double-edged sword when you're talking, to somebody. That's what you putting out. That's what you taking in, And I believe that if I'm putting out good things and I'm trying to, encourage somebody else, even when I'm down, that's going to encourage me at the same time. I'm giving what I want to get.
Right.
So that's just my perspective. That's just how it is for me. And, like you said, talking is something that's good. And even if you're not such a talkative person, write it down. Those parents out there that have those younger children, like 2-year-olds, like I have, draw it out. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it is some little scrabbles. Oh, baby, that's a worm. Yeah, it's a worm. And that's that, you're not so focused on everything that's going wrong. You looking at the beauty, even in that little scrabble piece of paper they got there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give your mind something else to do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And I do think through this experience, many people have spent more time with family and with friends, which has been, like you said, just good for the soul. So thank you so much, Bria, for telling your story. I really do appreciate, for Ria and Peter, who were on earlier. I appreciate that. Just to let you know, they're available anytime you guys want to call or you need to talk. They're part of my Cape Coral Therapists, and we're here for you. Anybody who's out there listening, and you may just need to share your story, because that's what we're here to do. Yes. Yeah.
And thank you as well for having me. And I appreciate anybody and everybody that's out here in the world listening. Trust and believe me, you're amazing. You're a survivor, and you should stand proud with the S on your chest, because you made it.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, this has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show, and we'll be back in a moment. Thank you.
Great. Hi, I'm Ruane. I work as a therapist at Cape Coral Therapists. I also am a part of the vacation counseling, couples counseling team. I was here during the storm. It was really devastating to see people lose their homes and their vehicles. For me, it was really sad to lose a cat that we still haven't found yet. And also walking the beach, because the roads were closed. We came across a baby dolphin that had lost its life. And it was very, very devastating to see people looking for their loved ones and searching for their homes, their boats, their cars. One particular woman that we helped out, just thanked us for 10 minutes to tell her story of how she was in her place with the tsunami, 20-foot wave coming towards her. And she pointed to a Corvette that she had lost during the storm and said that she would gladly give up that car for like a water bottle at the time. That's how devastated she was. Thank you for listening to my story. We are here to help you. Please reach out, if not to us, to someone. Just share your story, and thank you.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy was real, or is real.
That's even just talking about it. And again, me not even being a part of it, just talking about it. I am at awe with you all's bravery, with your strength. And, strength as in we just mustered it up, but the strength of vulnerability, that's huge. And I appreciate it 1,000 times over. This was such a necessary place because someone needed to be reminded to breathe. Mm-hmm. Someone needed to be reminded to speak. Someone needed to be reminded that they matter and that it's okay if you cannot do something for others in the moment, to at least do that for yourself until you're able to.
Wow, that's powerful. And one of the things that I am very appreciative of you and all the people that have been calling and checking on me and the therapist. And if you know someone in Florida, it's really good. Even if you haven't talked to them in a while. Had people I haven't talked to in 5 or 6 years. Someone's in your mind, check on them. Yes. It really does make a big difference. And Coach K, you're right. If you can't do something for other people, it's starting to do something for yourself. And breathing is a free thing that you can do. And even if you have no one to talk about it and you don't like writing, just talk it out yourself. I mean, yeah, just let it out. I really wanted to do this show to let everyone know how things were in this area, the resources that we have available, and to just be a support. So appreciate all you listeners out there. We will be back next week. We have a couple, Dr. Ray and Jean, and they're actually going to talk about vulnerability. Yes, so we'll be back next week. And in the meantime, everyone be safe and know that we are community and we are here for you. And this has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.